All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. With us today, we are going to be talking about a career that I am just going to be honest, I had never heard of before today, and that is metals and metal ores distribution manager.
Really, honestly,
Yeah.
I'm not surprised it's not exactly a common dinner table conversation starter.
Right. Like it sounds kind of like, well, I don't know, maybe a little boring, maybe a little bit like something my grandfather might have done.
Yeah, I can see that, but trust me, it's actually way more interesting than it sounds at first glance.
Okay, see, now you've got to tell me more because honestly, when I first saw this on the list of things to research for the show, I was like, I don't know about this one. But then I actually started digging into the stuff from RoleCatcher, and yeah, my mind was kind of blown.
Yeah, it's one of those things that once you start peeling back the layers, you realize it touches so many aspects of our lives in ways we don't even think about.
Exactly. It's like the hidden world behind all the things we rely on every day. So let's start with the basics. For those of us who, aren't exactly metallurgy experts, what does a metals and metal ores distribution manager actually do?
So in the simplest terms, these are the people who ensure that the right metals get from where they're mined or produced to where they're needed, whether that's a factory making smartphones or a construction site building a skyscraper.
So it's like a giant logistical puzzle, just with really, really valuable pieces.
Pretty much, and it's not just about moving things from point A to point B. There's a lot of strategy, negotiation, problem solving involved.
Yeah, I bet, especially when you're dealing with something as essential as metals. I mean, this stuff literally makes the world go round.
Exactly, and that's what makes this role so crucial, even though it's often overlooked. I mean, we're talking about managing global supply chains, navigating international regulations, and ensuring that industries have the materials they need to function.
So not exactly your average desk job, then?
Definitely not, though. There is definitely some office work involved, but the RoleCatcher guide mentioned potential travel to mines and processing plants, even international dealings.
Oh, wow. So it's like Indiana Jones meets Wall Street.
Yeah, there's definitely an element of adventure to it.
Okay, you know me. I am all about that adventure aspect, so that has definitely piqued my interest. But let's be real here. What kind of skills does someone actually need to thrive in a role like this? Because it sounds like it takes a pretty unique combination of like logistics savvy and global awareness.
You're telling me, and honestly, even the way you phrase that kind of makes me think of the whole nature versus nurture debate. Like, how much of this is about inherent talent versus learned skills?
Right, because it's not like there's a metal and metal ores distribution manager 101 class in most colleges, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you even begin to prepare for a career like this? And what are the key ingredients that make someone successful in this field? Those are some of the questions we're going to unpack as we dive deeper into this fascinating world.
And I, for one, am really curious to find out.
Me too. Let's get into it.
All right, so we've established that this job is way more dynamic and demanding than it might seem at first glance. But let's talk brass tacks here. What's the day-to-day reality for someone in this role? What are the perks? And let's be honest, what are the potential pitfalls?
Well, the RoleCatcher guide didn't shy away from the realities of the job, and I have to give them credit for that. On the upside, you have the potential for high earning potential. We were talking about managing incredibly valuable and essential resources after all. And yes, the potential for international travel and experiencing different cultures firsthand is definitely a draw for many.
Okay, but that almost sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? What are we trading for those high rewards?
The catch, as with many high-stakes roles, is the pressure. We're talking about tight deadlines, constant problem solving, and navigating a complex web of global regulations and fluctuating markets. The guide specifically mentioned that things can go wrong. A mine could have a labor dispute, a shipment could be delayed due to weather, or a global pandemic could throw everything into chaos.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a job for the faint of heart. It's like you need nerves of steel and the ability to make high-pressure decisions with incomplete information. No wonder they need those expert negotiators.
Exactly. But here's the interesting thing. The guide also highlighted how this career path is evolving in a way that might actually appeal to those who thrive on challenge and adaptation. It's not just about managing logistics anymore. It's about understanding and leveraging technology to anticipate and mitigate those risks.
So those who can ride that wave of technological change, who can analyze data and use tools like AI and blockchain to their advantage, they're the ones who are going to excel in this field going forward.
Precisely. And that brings us to a larger point about the future of work in general, even in a field like metals and metal ores distribution, which might seem very grounded in the physical world. The ability to learn, adapt, and embrace new technologies is becoming paramount.
It's like that saying the only constant is change, right? And this deep dive has really driven that home. For me, we started with what seemed like a very specific, maybe even niche career path, but it's opened up a whole world of insights into global trends, technological disruption, and the skills we all need to be developing to navigate this increasingly complex world. So if a job managing metals can change so drastically, imagine what's happening in your field. What skills are you investing in to stay ahead of the curve? That's something I think we all need to be thinking about, no matter what our career aspirations may be. So we're talking about managing the flow of metals that quite literally make the modern world tick.
It really is mind-boggling when you think about it.
It is.
It's like we take for granted that we have these materials available to build everything around us, but there's a whole intricate system in place to make that happen.
And someone has to be in charge of that system.
Exactly. And that's where our metals and metal ores distribution manager comes in.
So what kind of skills does that actually require? I mean, beyond knowing the difference between, iron ore and titanium.
Oh, more than you might think, actually.
Okay, I'm listening.
Obviously, you need a solid understanding of the materials themselves.
Yeah.
The different the properties where they're sourced from.
Right, like the actual metals.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But it goes beyond just knowing your ores.
I bet.
This is a management role, so you need those core leadership and business skills.
So like thinking strategic planning, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. You're responsible for coordinating huge shipments, negotiating contracts, managing budgets. It's a lot of big picture thinking.
Okay, so you're not just like on the ground directing traffic with a clipboard.
Not quite, though I'm sure there are days where it feels that way.
I bet.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, tell me more.
The RoleCatcher guide emphasized a few skills that I honestly didn't expect.
Like what?
Number one, problem solving.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, things must go wrong all the time in a global supply chain.
All the time.
Yeah.
A mine could flood. A shipment could get delayed due to political unrest. You need to be able to think on your feet and come up with creative solutions.
Oh, so you're like the ultimate fixer.
Pretty much. And that ties into the second unexpected skill negotiation.
Oh, yeah, because you're dealing with suppliers, buyers, all these different players.
Exactly. And the stakes are high. We're talking about materials that are essential for critical industries. So you need to be a skilled negotiator to get the best deals and keep those materials flowing.
I imagine it's not like haggling over the price of a car.
Not even close. We're talking about millions, maybe billions of dollars worth of materials.
Wow. Okay, so high pressure, high rewards.
Exactly. And that brings us to the third and possibly most surprising skill, tech savviness.
Tech savviness, really. I wouldn't have put those two things together, metals and technology.
I know it seems counterintuitive, right?
Right.
But the reality is this industry is becoming increasingly digitized.
So we're talking like AI, blockchain, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. They're using AI to optimize supply chains, blockchain, to track the ethical sourcing of materials. Even things like drones and autonomous vehicles are starting to play a role.
Wow. So it's like the future is already here in the world of metals.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's why being tech savvy is no longer optional in this field. It's essential.
So you're telling me that to be a successful metals and metal ores distribution manager, you need to be a strategic thinker, a master negotiator, and a tech whiz?
That about sums it up.
Wow. Okay. I'm not going to lie. This job is way more intense than I initially thought, but also kind of amazing.
Right. It's like this hidden world that's driving so much of our modern lives.
And it takes a special kind of person to manage it all.
It really does. But the rewards can be significant, both financially and in terms of the impact you can have.
Okay, so we've talked about the skills, the demands. Now let's get into those rewards and maybe some of the downsides as well, because, every job has its pros and cons. Okay. So we've talked about the skills, the demands. Now let's get into those rewards and maybe some of the downsides as well, because, every job has its pros and cons.
Right. And like we mentioned before, the RoleCatcher guide was really upfront about both the good and the bad.
Yeah, which I appreciated because it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of like, oh, global travel, big money, but then reality hits.
Exactly. So let's start with the good stuff, because there's definitely a lot to be excited about in this career path.
Like, what are the perks that come with being a metals and metal ores distribution manager?
Well, first and foremost, the earning potential is definitely up there. We're talking about a highly specialized and in-demand field, so the salaries reflect that.
Okay, so that's always a plus.
And then there's the travel aspect, which you already mentioned. You're often dealing with international suppliers and clients.
Right.
So there's a good chance you'll get to see the world.
See, I knew there was a reason I was drawn to this job.
But it's not just about sightseeing. You're also immersing yourself in different cultures, building relationships with people from all over the world.
That's true. It's like a crash course in global citizenship.
Exactly, and that kind of experience is invaluable both professionally and personally.
Okay, so we've got high earning potential, we've got travel opportunities. What else is there to love about this career?
Well, it's also a field where you can really make a difference.
Oh, so.
Think about it. Metals are essential for so many industries, from renewable energy to healthcare to infrastructure.
Right, like basically everything.
So by ensuring the responsible and efficient distribution of these materials, you're playing a vital role in shaping a more sustainable and technologically advanced future.
Wow. Okay, so you're not just making a living, you're making a difference.
Exactly. And that sense of purpose can be incredibly rewarding.
Okay, so it's not all about the money.
Not at all, though it's definitely a nice perk.
Right. So we've covered the good stuff now. Let's rip off the Band-Aid. What are the downsides? What are the things that might make someone think twice about this career path?
Well, the biggest one is probably the stress level.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a high-pressure job.
Definitely, you're constantly dealing with deadlines, unexpected problems, and a lot of moving parts.
And like we talked about before, those problems aren't small potatoes. We're talking about global supply chains, millions of dollars.
Exactly. So the stakes are high, and that can definitely take a toll.
So you need to be able to handle pressure and uncertainty.
Absolutely. And be comfortable making decisions with incomplete information.
Okay, so that's one downside. What else?
Another thing to consider is the potential for job instability.
What do you mean?
Well, the metals industry is very cyclical. It's influenced by things like global demand, political instability, even natural disasters.
So there's no guarantee of long-term job security.
That's right. There could be periods of high demand followed by downturns. So you need to be adaptable and willing to potentially relocate or change roles.
Okay, so it's not for someone who craves stability and predictability.
Not necessarily, but if you thrive on challenge and are always up for a new adventure, then this could be the perfect field for you.
That's a good way to put it. So to wrap up, what are your final thoughts on this whole metals and metal ores distribution manager thing?
I think it's a fascinating example of how a seemingly traditional industry is being transformed by technology and global interconnectedness.
Yeah, it's like a hidden world that most of us never even think about, but it's vital to our modern way of life.
Exactly. And it requires a unique set of skills that blend business acumen with tech savviness and a global mindset.
And it shows that no matter what field you're in, the ability to adapt and embrace change is only going to become more important in the future.
Absolutely. So if you're looking for a career that's both challenging and rewarding, and you're not afraid of a little hard work and a lot of uncertainty, then this might just be the perfect path for you.
I think that's a great place to leave it on that note, folks. If you're interested in learning more about this career path, or any other career path for that matter, be sure to check out RoleCatcher. They've got a ton of great resources, including salary information, interview tips, and even personalized career recommendations.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to the show and leave us a rating. We love hearing from you.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.